Hello and welcome to Brain Says Strange Things. This episode, we're going to be talking about all things Evil Dead. We just got back from seeing the brand new Evil Dead movie, so we're going to be reviewing that film along with a discussion of the original Evil Dead trilogy directed by Sam Raimi. But let's not bury the lead and start things off with our review of Evil Dead.
Not the Evil Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Evil Dead.
Evil Dead. So this is the remake directed by Fede Alvarez of Sam Raimi's classic Cabin in the Woods horror film. Pretty simple story here. In fact, they don't get much simpler. A group of young people gather at a cabin, in this version to help a friend of theirs kick a drug habit. And they discover a strange demonic book bound in human skin, and when certain passages from the book are read aloud, demons are unleashed and take possession of our protagonists one by one. The horror increases as the film goes on, and it's Evil Dead. The original is a cult classic. This new film has been highly anticipated by the two of us and many horror fans, I think. Jordan, what did you think of the 2013 version of Evil Dead?
Meh. No, I really liked it. I thought it was really good. Definitely not what I was expecting.
Ah, how so?
When it started out, I was scared. I was like, whoa, what was I getting into? Not scared like
Not
what
scared,
they want you
like
to be.
frightened.
I was like, oh no, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Flashbacks to the remake of Texas Chainsaw 3D, which we did not enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What threw you out initially, or what made you hesitant?
The characters.
Okay.
Even though they showed them in the trailer.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. When they're getting out of that Jeep and they're just like hanging out, it looks so much like everything that you've seen before.
Typical modern horror movie.
People are cleaned up. They're a lot better looking.
Mm-hmm. But I did like that they this cast is pretty much all unknowns. I think one of the girls
definitely good
is supposedly I think she's on a TV show right now that I don't watch, but otherwise it's pretty much a cast of unknowns, which I appreciated. I like that.
Yep, that works.
And they do not have a character playing Bruce Campbell's
Not
character.
really, no.
Not really, no. There's no Ash in this movie, who became really kind of an iconic character in those original Evil Dead movies. They don't even attempt to revisit that character. So I thought those were both good choices. But originally it seemed a little too kind of glossy, a little bit too cleaned up for your tastes.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk a little bit about trailers. Now, the trailer for the Red Band one is probably one of the best trailers I've seen in a long time. It's kind of weird to just review a trailer, but it really got me interested in it.
Yeah, I agree. When I first heard that they were remaking Evil Dead, I really...
Yep, it sounds like it has nothing going for it.
Yeah, it's just because the story of the original Evil Dead is so basic. I mean, it's really not about the story. It's really about the style of the film and Bruce Campbell's kind of breakout, kind of cult performance.
Kind of just built around him. So if you take him out of it...
Take him out of it, there's nothing really interesting about the premise. Why bother remaking it? But you're right, the trailer looked really intense and scary. And it seemed like they were really going for it. So I agree, it had a really good trailer. Yeah.
I kind of wish I hadn't watched it as much as I did, almost. A lot of the scenes in it, which are still creepy in the movie, they just kind of stand out. And you're like, oh, I shouldn't have overdone myself.
You would have liked to see it in the film for the first time.
Yep.
But
then if you look at that, it's like, well, why am I here in the first place? It's, well, because of the trailer. So, I mean, there's a delicate balance there, but so I don't really remember like the turning point in it. I think actually when they say that that's the reason why they're in the cabin is to help her. It's like an intervention. They're helping her try to kick this drug. Whatever.
So it's 5 people altogether, and one of the girls is addicted to drugs, and she's going to try to go cold turkey, spend a night, go through all the withdrawals in this cabin.
And they've heard that she's
safe environment.
She tried it before, and failed. So this is kind of like their last hope.
Right. And so this subplot of one of the characters having this drug addiction was new, and I thought was a clever way of getting them into this place.
Very good. Also, it's a very clever way of doing
demon possession.
Yes, that as well. There's a lot of good things about that
premise,
it was smart. What I like.
Yep.
It's basically, I mean, we've talked about these before. Is like, how do you can give a person a convincing reason why this person is not leaving, why these people aren't leaving this place.
Which is always the thing you've got to come up with in these haunted house movies.
Why not just run out the door?
Right.
And they think she's just going through the withdrawals, so which is similar to the signs of being possessed. She's seeing things, and she's acting in a way that she never had acted before.
Bisecting her tongue with a box cutter.
There's that.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking like, well, if that element wasn't there, be like, well, just get in the car and leave. But it right away, it's that girl's story.
And I think it grounded it a little bit more in reality than the original Evil Dead, because in the original Evil Dead, they jump into the plot very quickly, and it's immediately apparent that we're dealing with supernatural demon possession. In this film, it takes them a long time to finally accept that, okay, something supernatural is going
Relatively
on.
Long, because it's a short movie.
It's a short movie. It's an hour and a half.
Also very good. It had a lot of really good things.
Perfect runtime. Yeah. So when you realize that they were introducing this subplot of the girl trying to kick this addiction, then that kind of boosted it up a little bit.
That idea, I really like that idea. I think it was a really clever twist in it.
It was a smart way to get him in there.
It kind of went back and forth for a little while before it really won me over at the end, but a lot of the times when they're trying to tell the story, I kind of cringed a little bit. There's a scene where the teacher, the nerdy guy, I guess, whatever, the guy that unleashes the demons.
Yeah, the guy who finds the book and reads the words aloud.
When they're trying to show that there is a relationship between him and the main semi-Ash character, like the main guy.
Yeah.
I guess probably should say who these people are, just to kind of give a little bit of an idea of what the picture is. So there's the main girl who becomes possessed.
The young girl who's well, she's not a young girl, but a teenage girl. She's trying to kick her addiction.
And her brother.
Who's basically the main protagonist for most of the movie.
He's basically kind of the Ash guy. Then there's his girlfriend, who doesn't really have a lot to do. And then there's just a friend of theirs, right? And then
the nurse.
Then there's the nurse. Yeah, there's the nerdy guy, and then there's the nurse, right? That's the five.
Yep.
They balanced it pretty well. I mean, when they get killed off, it's pretty quick. It's just like one after the other, which is it's really good in like a short movie like this. I don't know. I don't know. It didn't feel like it was unbalanced at any point, even though the last half is like intense. Way more than the first half.
But I like that.
Both of those worked really well.
Yeah, I thought that the intensity of the movie kind of built at a perfect pace over the 90 minutes up until the end, when it's this really like wild action movie, and you can't really point. It's not as though they turned a sharp corner and it was realistic and now we're in a supernatural movie. It's that it slowly kind of became an Evil Dead movie as it went along over its 90 minutes.
But one of like the minor cringe moments that I was talking about, it would be like when they're trying to show the relationship between the teacher guy and the main girl's
guy.
Brother. Yeah. And you're supposed to think like, oh, something went on here. And the nurse girl makes a comment like, oh, there goes your friend. And it's like really close on his face. He's like, what friend? Or something like that. And I was just kind of like, oh boy, here we go. Like, you don't need to explain that kind of stuff to me. It's like, I would almost be fine not knowing the relationship between these people.
Well, and you didn't know much. I feel like you knew enough about these characters' backstories and motivations to kind of get them through this particular 90-minute plot. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
I mean,
think
the
they
guy
went
had the
too deep
girlfriend,
into
and
it.
she was almost just non-existent. It's
Yeah.
really a brother and sister relationship.
Yes.
Story.
Yep. The primary relationship is between the brother, ostensibly our main character, and the sister, who is the first to become possessed and is trying to kick.
Which they're really good together, the two of them.
Yep, they had a good chemistry between them. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit more to the backstory in that the mother suffered from mental illness, which just kind of adds kind of further fuel to the can this be explained rationally? Is there something supernatural going on here? Element to it, which I thought was good.
And it also kind of convinces you like why the brother would do what he does. He's kind of painted to be a coward, kind of like Ash is. But him having seen his mother going through basically stuff like that, I don't know. It would he'd be able to justify in his mind. Why some of this stuff would be.
These are not completely fully rounded, nuanced characters,
no,
but I think
they're rounded enough.
Yeah, they had just enough backstory so that you could buy into their motivation for really everything they did in this film. The way that they reacted to things. There wasn't, like we talked about in our Texas Chainsaw 3D, at the end, you know, when both of these movies end with a girl picking up a chainsaw and kind of taking her fate into her own hands. But when that happens in...
It shows that that's not a deal breaker, that idea.
Well, right. When it shows you how these kind of subtle storytelling, techniques really are kind of the heart of making a good movie. Because when that happens at the end of Texas Chainsaw, I remember you said in our review of it, they hadn't earned it.
Yeah.
This girl would not make this
cool
decision
scene and
in
cool
this
idea,
situation. But in this film, I think everything that these characters decide to do every moment rang completely true. Sounds like a little thing. Evil Dead's a really kind of simple movie. It doesn't aim real high. It just wants to be a good kind of gross-out movie. But it respects its characters. It respects its audience.
As simple as it is, it's kind of like 10 times more complicated than the original.
Yeah, there's a lot more nuance.
The original one's very simple. It's great.
Yeah, this one added some different shading to it, which I enjoyed. Yeah, I just say right out, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was kind of just a perfect 90-minute horror film. You know, it didn't reinvent the genre or anything. It's interesting to see a movie like this after movies like Cabin in the Woods, which totally kind of deconstruct the genre. This isn't out to do that at all. No. This is really a movie by a horror fan for horror fans. It's a lot of intense, gory scenes and sequences, but it's kind of perfectly packaged and put together. I thought they really kind of hit it out of the park with this one. I thought this was everything an Evil Dead.
You didn't have the feeling at the beginning, like you were just kind of in right away.
Yeah, I wasn't. I was. I would explain my attitude going into this movie to be cautiously optimistic. I mean, everything I'd seen, everything I'd heard, the directors and the producers, Sam Raimi, Robert Tappert, and
it had an NC-17 rating.
It initially had an NC-17 rating.
Wait till like the director's cut.
All practical effects and things like that. So I was excited but cautiously. I didn't want to get my hopes up too much. But yeah, I didn't, I think, so I guess maybe I had a little bit more confidence in the movie. I wasn't as afraid that it would. I was willing to give it the benefit of the doubt until it proved otherwise. And for me, it never really proved otherwise. I think you were maybe more afraid that it was going to go into kind of cliche
than it actually did.
Yeah, the actors were a little bit, polished and better looking than, what you might get out of like a movie like the original Evil Dead, which is, kind of on a shoestring budget. But no, I thought they were very respectful of the original, story and intent of the original film.
Oh, and also the before the credits sequence, I thought was.
Oh, I like that.
I liked it, but it wasn't what I was expecting. And
well, it wasn't what I was expecting.
Not every movie should like reward what I want to happen, but I don't know.
Don't make these movies just for you, Jordan.
No, I know, but they should. But I don't know. It's good, but I kind of wish it would have been a little more of like a bang. Like,
See, I really like
even though it's an actual bang.
It is,
but I don't know. I kind of feel like I might have seen it before.
Okay,
a little bit. Even though the way it was shot was really good.
Yeah. See, for me, that maybe was what put me in a different attitude, because I actually really thought that was a cool way to open it. You know what I mean? Like you had this initial group of people, and this situation with this girl already being possessed, and the father having to blow her head off while she's burning alive. And
well, there's one good part of that, because in that opening scene, one person dies.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the story, it's revealed that the demon needs 5 people to die.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know that, of course, there's going to be one survivor.
Right.
So that takes that person out of the equation.
Right.
So only 4 people can die in the basic story, the main story. But then you also think, oh, someone died earlier, so they only need to kill 4 more.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that's a really clever way of doing it.
It was a really smartly put together.
Because I thought about that right away. I was like, no, they're not going to even need to kill everybody because somebody already died. All they need is 4, and there's going to be a final. It's a good way to justify there being a final girl.
Yeah.
And that girl in the movie, like, I think I'm in love.
Yeah,
I love that girl.
I've seen the Facebook picture.
Jane Levy. All right. Yeah, Jane Levy. Just amazing.
Uh-huh. She was good. She's really
beautiful.
Good.
She's great.
I just read an interview with her, though, in Fangoria, and she, I don't think, had a very good time making this movie. She said it was just really...
I've seen interviews with her, too, before, and she seemed like she was really all for it.
Well, I think she really, likes the movie that they made. She really liked working with the director.
But with no, special effects.
Yeah,
essentially.
I think the physics, because this is all practical, or at least mostly practical special effects. There's not a lot of CGI.
I don't think you could ever say it's all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I mean, they really did it kind of like old school, you know. So, so I think she said that just the
way more so than anything.
Just the physical toll and demands that it took to make an intense movie like this. Were something that she probably wouldn't want. Like she wouldn't do more horror movies, I think is what she was kind of saying. But I think she's proud of this movie.
I think it's like a real tour de force, especially with because she kind of gets lost a little in the middle, where they focus on the demon taking the other characters over.
Yep.
And she's in the basement, and she just kind of gets lost in the story a little bit, and I was kind of disappointed. And then I'm thinking, well, what else can they do with it? There's nothing more. She can just become more and more evil. I guess, and be driven insane. But then the ending just kind of flips it on its head again.
Yeah.
And I thought that really worked. The end scene when it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't know that I completely understand it, but I was
when 5 people are killed or 5 souls are taken, whatever.
Yeah, we're not going to worry about spoiling this too, by the way. So
basically, we're going to have to spoil it to review it.
So we're just going to discuss the ending and everything, but
there's
the
a great
demon
scene.
gets its 5 souls. And
we talked about
Sky Rain's blood.
Not in any of these, but we've talked about remember Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol.
Yeah,
that one
movie we liked a lot.
Yeah, the story doesn't make a lick of sense. It's the equivalent of a regular horror movie story, you know. But they're all those little set pieces, action scenes where he's on top of the tallest building. There's a huge sandstorm coming. Yep. I thought the exact same way when this demon's crawling after her with no legs, tipping over the car, tipping the car over on top of her, and you're watching it from above, and you can see she's trying to. The car lands on her hand, and it's a big shot from above, and you're just watching the whole thing from directly above it, and you see the demon because she had cut its legs off and it's pulling itself or it's coming around the car.
Yep.
It's just a great it's a great action scene.
Yeah.
Which people I don't think people would consider that to be an action scene, but I do. I think
this is definitely
intense.
A movie where, kind of like I felt about the original Evil Dead, in this story in the hands of another director could have been just a complete disaster. You know what I mean? It's really not the story that makes it interesting. It's really how this movie is put together. And you're right. The story is just enough to kind of hang these really intense, violent, but really well done set pieces on. And I think the best one was kind of that end sequence with the girl fighting this zombie demon thing, Deadite, I guess, that was coming after her. Yep. And I like the ending too. I like that, you're not sure who is going to be the final boy or girl in this story. It really seems
I can tell you, okay, this is really weird. And I can tell you what I thought. I almost called it. I would have been totally wrong.
Okay.
I almost was going to call it because there's the 5 people. And who's the one person that you don't really hear anything about, you don't really care about, and the person you would least suspect to be the final girl?
The blonde girl?
The girlfriend.
Okay.
In the trailer, it shows her cutting her arm off.
Yeah.
I figured that's kind of the way
she'll become like the Ash.
I thought she was going to become the Ash character because I had like, this is so dumb, but I was like looking like who the actors were, and every one of them had a credit, but this person was just a totally unknown person, no credits, and I'm like, I could see them doing that. I could see them plucking someone from obscurity and turning them into the hero of the movie. I was totally wrong.
Well,
but I thought that would have been like an interesting take, and it totally could have gone that way.
They, to some extent, they kind of did that a little bit. You know what I mean? Because the first victim also ended up being the one who essentially picked up the mantle of that chainsaw at the end and became the final girl. Or, you know, you could consider her kind of like the new Ash character. So you
because she cuts her arm off as well,
right? And
or rips her arm off, which is even more horrific.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah, I thought that was kind of well done because you kind of assume that it's going to be the main guy, like he'll kind of play the Ash role in this movie, but it wasn't quite that simple. It wasn't that 1-to-1 ratio, and ultimately,
you still haven't seen the not Evil Dead. See, now I'm going to make a mistake here. The Night of the Living Dead remake,
right?
Where it turns the girl into the hero. Into the final girl, where she straps on the big boots, and then in this scene, she's wearing a dress, little red dress. He puts her in a dress for not really any particular reason. He buries her, and he kind of wants to give his sister respect and properly bury her. So she's got that kind of iconic red dress, and then she's got the boots on, and I kind of like flashback to that. And then she's got her arm cut off, and I don't know. It was really well done in creating a character. She overcame like her demons, also real demons. Isn't that fascinating? Put that on the damn poster. Put that on the poster.
This movie was deeper than I thought. That's a good point.
And I'm smitten with that girl.
Do you think she kicked her drug addiction at the end? That's what I wondered. Is she just going to go back and just, do drugs?
I think she's good.
Yeah, I think she's good too. And ready for the sequel. I heard that Fede Alvarez is already hard at work on the second film in this new sequence of Evil Dead, and I'll be there to see it. I thought they did a great job with this one.
I'm all for it.
Yeah. So the end sequence was great. It was...
Oh, there's one other thing that I really liked about it.
Okay.
The music.
Yes. Just the soundtrack
the sound whatever
of this film was cool.
There's two things. When the guy with the glasses... at the very end comes back, but you kind of think he's going to.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Kind of a horror trope, but well done. Again, well done in this movie. Well handled.
There's a weird kind of like a circus theme where it's like, I'm not even gonna try to explain it, but that's what I thought when I saw it. He's like moving in a weird undead way. There's a weird circus theme, and then also what they do in the movie, there's a weird sound that they make. It's like a siren.
Yeah, like a weird siren.
Sort of like what you would hear if like Godzilla is invading, or like there's gonna be martial law declared, or there's some horrible tornado coming, like a tornado alarm. It's like, I'm not gonna try to recreate the sound, but they do that a lot in it when something like really terrible is about to happen, which you would think, but it's like while it's happening.
It just adds a level of insanity and just intense.
Because there's something like really primal about that sound. You hear it and you're like, you don't know what it means, but you know you're supposed to panic.
Yep.
And I don't know. I think that's really.
It had a great score, and the score. And I feel like pay more attention to this kind of stuff than I do, but I feel like the score kind of evolves as the movie evolved.
Because those things that I mentioned only appear in the end.
And in fact,
it's not a coincidence that it's happening at the same time that all the horrific stuff. It's happening for the same reason that it's building.
Yep. I wish I would have made note of the guy who did the music for the movie because he did a really great job. But I feel like earlier in the movie, it was very kind of like, again, well done, but like almost kind of cliched use of music. You know what I mean? Like it really kind of like underscored emotional.
See, that's why I think
jump scared in the way that you would expect it to. And by the end, you're like really impressed with this bizarre kind of score that they've come up with, and it's like, well, where was the point of the movie where it turned into this? It's like there wasn't like
that's
a sharp
part
turn.
of it.
It was this.
That's exactly what I mean when I'm like, I don't know where it kind of won me over. It kind of just. I was sort of won over from the beginning, but maybe this is a credit to the director. I think it kind of fooled me. I think he kind of said, like, this is what you think it's gonna be, but it's not gonna
Yep.
be that way at all.
Yep.
And that, I don't know. I love that bomb siren sound.
Yeah.
They play it during the credits.
Yep.
Even.
Yep.
I don't know.
I thought they did a great job with it. So, yeah, it's just a really terrifically put together movie. You're right. I hope they release a full NC-17 unrated director's cut on Blu-ray. I think they did a great job with it. Yeah, so I don't know. Any other kind of because it was such a so many gory, intense scenes. Any other, like, particular sequences we want to point out? I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, completely spoil every single moment of the movie, but
something I like that maybe, I don't know, it didn't even have anything to do with the story at all. I guess it wasn't like a set piece action scene like the last one.
Mm-hmm.
I like the scene where the brother is. Well, there's a few scenes. Every scene between the brother and the sister is really good.
Mm-hmm. These actors all did a great job.
Just like the brother doesn't care when she's he finds out that she's killed the dog.
Oh, right.
And he marches in. He's like he's gonna go confront her because he sees there's a hammer, and she's been acting crazy, and he knows it's her. He's gonna be like, what the hell is going on? He rushes into the house. They're like, what? She's in the shower. And, like, he's a brother, and he's like, I'm coming in. He's, like, betting, like, why is he going to walk in on his sister in the shower? And, like, it's kind of weird, but he's just, he doesn't care. He's like, he has to confront this. And then he breaks in, or actually, you see it before he breaks in. It's her, like, standing there, like, up against the shower. Basically, like, something like a drug addict would do.
Yep.
It's like alone, like a crying game moment, you know. Where she's just standing there, she turns up the heat, and there's no way to really convey that in a movie, like how that would feel. But they show like the furnace burst in the basement because it's so hot, and then the room just instantly fills with steam. I don't know. I've never seen anything like that before. It's a really creative way of showing something terrible. She's just standing there, turning up the heat like it's boiling, and it's all over. I don't know. You're just like.
Yeah,
I was horrified. I was horrified in a different way.
And yet, it's still at that point where it's like, I mean, we as the audience know it's an Evil Dead movie, but it's still at that level of reality where it's like you could still accept this as like extreme behavior by someone going through extreme withdrawal. You know what I mean? And again, like the point at which it goes from that to like clearly supernatural horror is really kind of hazy, and you can't quite point to where it turns that corner.
It must really have been deliberately so, because in most movies you could probably say like this is the moment where it exploded and it just became something different.
Yep.
I'd have to go back and rewatch and see like what turned it.
Yeah, it's really a
because of
masterfully
that
put together movie.
Because of that little germ of an idea where she's trying to kick this addiction.
Yep.
I mean, she's
smart.
Yeah, she's dealing with her demons and real demons. I mean, use it, goddammit. It's good.
I love it. Yeah. Do you think that this one missed or that it could have used or needed on it anyway some of the humor that was in the original?
I did think
especially that, Evil Dead 2 was almost more of a comedy than a horror, but even the original one.
I thought about that because. But then again, I feel kind of like I was fooled in a good way. Where you're almost expecting that punchline at the end of the scene.
Yeah.
She kills the character at the end, or she's about to. She's holding the chainsaw. What do you expect? I'm thinking she's going to be like, she's going to say groovy. Or some.
It kind of had that energy
like
to
almost
it.
going to push the limit. And you think like that's going to happen. And then it just kind of betrays that. She has a line at the end, but it's not a catchphrase. It's not over the top. It's just like it's really well done as well.
Yeah.
So it does lack the humor,
but not necessarily to the detriment of this movie.
Yeah, but just like how this one definitely tries to be more scary than Evil Dead. Like Evil Dead is not necessarily. It's on the line of being scary and just like a parody of scary movies.
It's more fun though. The original Evil Dead is more just kind of, it's funny, it's funny for Bruce Campbell's
and this one is fun as well, but just kind of for different reasons.
In a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think about like the humor or lack thereof?
I think ultimately I liked it. I liked that it was played so straight because I think if there had been too much humor, it would have robbed it of some of the intensity. It would have taken you out of it a little bit. It would have pushed it into that cartoon realm a little bit.
Yep.
But
like, don't you think like the violence brought it to that level enough? You don't need the humor almost.
Yeah, it's weird. There is like this kind of giddy kind of energy to this movie. Like you almost want to kind of supply your own jokes at certain moments. You know, not that you're laughing at the movie, but I don't know. There's a really weird energy to this new Evil Dead movie. It's not necessarily really scary for a lot of it. It's intense. It's gory, but it's really mostly just a good time. It's not really the kind of horror that really kind of gets under your skin, you know, and tries to genuinely disturb you. I think it was made to just really entertain people who like horror movies. It wasn't really made to capture a mainstream audience. So I don't think it needed that horror to alleviate it, but at the same time, like, you can see how humor would fit into the Evil Dead world really well and why it was a part of the original. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I guess for me it was, you know, I think maybe it could have been leavened with some humor, but it also helps it to stand apart from, you know, the original 3 films. So, yeah, ultimately I think they pretty much nailed this one note for note, scene for scene. It was like what I like to call a good time at the movies. So, yeah, and Fede Alvarez was handpicked by Sam Raimi, Robert Tappert, and Bruce Campbell, the producers, because of a short film that he made. He's from Uruguay, right? This young filmmaker.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And he made a short film with it called Panic Attack. A little short 5-minute film that he put on YouTube.
Like a kaiju attack. Or
yeah, so it's basically just giant monsters attack his, or not giant monsters, giant robots attack his home city. And it's really just kind of a showcase for special effects that were made on a shoestring budget, but really kind of masterfully put together, kind of became this viral YouTube video, and that's how he came to the attention of Sam Raimi and ultimately became the director of this new Evil Dead.
That was his resume, and it's really well done. It's like, I don't know, it's like 15 minutes or something.
Yep, and I feel like it's very much in the spirit of the original Evil Dead in that, you know, that film did not have a huge budget. You know, it's just kind of guys doing it because they loved it. They kind of came on over, kind of took off. It kind of became like a cult classic. So I think he was a really appropriate choice for director.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely one to follow, yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure, to see what he does next. Well, hopefully he'll do Evil Dead 2 next, or
Army of Darkness,
or whatever they decide to do for the next movie. Well, so I think that kind of brings us to a discussion of the original trilogy, unless there's any final words on...
I have a lot to say about it, but I think that's good.
Go ahead. If there's any kind of final points you want to throw out before we...
well, there's just one other scene that got me, and it's in the trailer, and it also works in the movie. So I saw it like a million times, and it still didn't... It still affected me in the same way. I just love seeing it on the big screen. It's where he first confronts her about what's going on. She's sitting on the bunk bed. There's something really interesting about that scene, where she's sitting there, and he's sitting next to her, and she's whispering like what's going on, and you don't know if she's possessed or not, or if she's just going through these withdrawals. And she's whispering in his ear, and it's a really tight shot. Like you can see like spit in their mouths, essentially. And she's just telling him like, "You have to get me out of here." And, like the really simple. There's like word for word what she says, and there's something really creepy about that. They use it in the trailer. And I was like in right away. I was like, holy crap. And then I saw it on the big screen, and I was like, I love it.
Yeah.
It's just that in particular. I don't know. That girl just completely won me over.
Jeez. So you like this actress is what I'm...
Sorry.
Sorry.
All right, I'll stop.
It's this is a movie that is it's an experience. It's like an intense experience. See it on the big screen. See it in like a crowded theater, you know, see it with friends. I mean, this is the kind of movie that it's just a fun experience if you like this kind of
You could also enjoy it without having seen all of the
totally. It completely stands on its own. In fact, I kind of wonder what people who come first to this movie and then go back to the originals would think of the original trilogy.
I don't know, man.
All right. Well, we can come back to the new one as we go on here, but let's talk about the original trilogy, the first Evil Dead film, the sequels that followed, and just kind of the legacy of this whole franchise. So there were three previous Evil Dead movies. The original Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, which is sort of a remake, sort of a sequel to the original. And
kind of like a redo.
Yeah, kind of like Evil Dead redo. And there's Army of Darkness, which is something completely different. And I think the first of all these movies that I saw, and I later went back and watched the originals, great cult films. The original one came out in the very early 1980s, I think.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was made over a period of time, like 79 through whatever, like 81 or 2 or 3 or something. Like, it was born like when I was born, basically.
Yeah. Among other things, they kind of launched the career of Bruce Campbell, who's become kind of like a cult favorite actor, and is really terrific in the original Evil Dead movies.
He's great in them, all of them.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing to keep in mind if you see this new Evil Dead movie, you want to see more Evil Dead, is that they do take a very different approach to kind of the tone of the movies.
Well, here's one thing to keep in mind with all the Evil Dead ones. When Evil Dead came out, it was a great movie. Second one came out, it was a almost completely different movie, parody, redo, whatever it was. Then the third one came out, Army of Darkness, it's completely different again.
Yeah.
And now they have a remake that came out, and it's again completely different.
You really get a unique.
You have 4 different movies in the series, and they're all real. They all have common themes, but they're all completely different.
Yeah.
Mainly mood-wise.
Yeah. Mood and tone.
Yep. The first one is just very simplistic, creepy because of the lack of all the spectacle. Just kind of showcasing a person's talent. It's kind of like Panic Attack, basically. It's like a resume film. And then the Evil Dead 2, they take it up a notch because they add more special effects and they set up for a sequel, which they don't do in the original. So they add more elements to it. They're trying to build a franchise now. Third one comes out. It's complete medieval.
Yeah.
Really hilarious.
Really funny. We rewatched.
It was way funnier than I remember.
Yeah, we rewatched Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness recently in anticipation of seeing the new film and filming this episode. And
I forgot how funny
I was surprised how well it held up and how much you and I laughed at some of Bruce Campbell's lines. And just absolutely terrific.
I remember the lines, but just
Army of
hearing
Darkness.
them again was just great.
Lady, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store.
It's like the best ending ever.
Oh, just such a great, fun movie. Yeah, so... again, kind of on its own, you know.
They're all on their own.
Independent of this new film, the Evil Dead, the original trilogy, is definitely one you should see. I think you're probably have traditionally been a bigger fan of these movies than me. I actually hadn't seen them for several years until I was rewatching.
I used to watch the Evil Dead series every Halloween.
So you know it well.
I've listened to all the commentaries. Like, I was way into it. Hadn't been for a while, but then this new one kind of re-sparked my interest, and it all started kind of flood and come back to me, and I remember a lot of the stuff. I won't get into it because it'll make me sound even more ridiculous, but
it's just a great franchise.
It is. It's a great series, unlike any other one. I hope they continue because I have absolute confidence that the next one, I have no idea. Will it be a comedy? Will it be even more of a
Will it
movie?
be more like Army of Darkness?
Is there a possible way to go beyond NC-17? It's like, I feel like they could do it.
If anyone can do it, they can do it.
Yeah, it's just really
well. The nice thing about Evil Dead 2 is it's not owned by Paramount. It's not owned by New Line Cinema. Sam Raimi has had his hand in every one of these films.
Which is great
he
because,
directed the first 3. He produced this movie. This is the movie that he wants to make.
George Romero owns,
the
Living,
Living
Dead. No, he owns Dead,
okay.
And then John Russo owns the term like Living Dead.
Okay.
And now
that's a whole nother podcast.
And now Sam Raimi invented something wholly new.
Evil Dead, yeah.
He's got Evil Dead, so he's the brand new George Romero.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been around for a long time. He's really good. He had a really great concept that there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen and they're all really good.
Yeah.
He's a really good talent scout as well as being a really great director.
Yeah,
so.
and a very interesting career. I mean, to have begun with something like Evil Dead and to have gone on and produce the Spider-Man movies for Marvel and Sony and do the new Oz movie that's in theaters now. It's a really interesting career. So
Sam Raimi's a separate podcast as well. But
yeah, for sure. So what do you love about the original Evil Dead? Just the first Evil Dead film, because you prefer that to Evil Dead 2, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I'm definitely in the minority there. People love. I'm not saying it just to be in the minority either. I don't know. Evil Dead 2 is a really great movie, but
the primary difference being Evil Dead 2 is more overtly of a comedy. Same basic story. You know, Bruce Campbell is the main character, small group of young people, cabin in the woods, demon possession.
Yeah.
But the second one plays a little bit more overtly for laughs than the first one does.
Yeah, there's something really subtle going on in the first one, and there's nothing subtle about the second.
Yeah. Well, didn't you say Sam Raimi is really influenced by, like, the Three Stooges?
Yes.
And you can see that in his movies.
Yeah, they use sequences directly out of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. The first one is just... I kind of love the original idea of... You'll read the back of the box and it'll say, like... The story behind the movie is that these three guys... I mean, there were more than three, but Bruce Campbell, Rob Tappert, and Sam Raimi... It's almost a horror story in its own. The three of them go into the woods, go into a cabin with a camera, and then they film a horror movie.
Yep, and they over a long group, from what I understand, really grueling period of time. Maybe not to quite the level of like Apocalypse Now or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but similar kind of.
It's like there's something really subtle that comes through in the product, and then Evil Dead 2. They know what they had done before, so they use actual scenes out of the original Evil Dead. Then they redo them with like bigger special effects. It's not bad, but it's something that's different, and I think that I just love the idea of the first one. You see something really, truly original.
It's something kind of pure about it, you know.
It's kind of like Evil Dead in its purest form or something. So
pure, undiluted Evil Dead. But I think this new one gets pretty close to that spirit. You know, it's got the big budget. It looks absolutely phenomenal. It sounds great. But it's got some of that spirit of the original Evil Dead. There's a kind of purity of intent to it. You know, it just kind of wants to frighten and just kind of gross out the audience and really goes for it. And
it does. It goes for it.
It does. And there's a lot of nice little nods to the original in this one. One thing I forgot to ask you about is what do you think of, in both the original and then in this one, the kind of infamous rape sequence that happens out in the woods? What do you think of that in the first movie, and how did you think they handled that in this one? Because I've heard that Sam Raimi kind of regretted putting that in the first film, so I was kind of surprised that they revisited it here.
I don't know.
I feel like I'm just interviewing you about Evil Dead, but you're the bigger fan of it, I think.
I almost think in this one, the new one, it was kind of a non-issue. I kind of just forgot about it, basically.
It didn't quite have the impact, maybe, in the original.
In the first one, it's kind of disturbing because it doesn't look as realistic, and you can tell that they're trying to create a rape. In the
it's one of the.
I mean, it's over the top, so it's silly.
Yeah,
but there's something. It's a little almost underhanded.
It kind of goes a little skeevy. It's kind of one of those situations where you kind of feel bad for the actress. Yeah, you know, but.
I don't know, I almost kind of feel like there's not a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
In this one, they kind of redeem themselves, even though I don't even think that was in their minds. You know, they redeem themselves by making the girl a hero after they beat her down.
Yeah.
Which is the standard of any action movie. You know, Bruce Willis gets beat down before he blows up the bad guy in a helicopter at the end. This is the exact same thing. The first one, nothing like that really happens. There's a girl. She gets raped by the woods. There's another girl that gets buried and beheaded. You know, like
I thought they were going to reprise that sequence in this movie too. By the way, with the cutting the head off with the shovel, I thought that's what was going to happen.
Well, a real interesting thing that they did. I mean, here we are back to the remake, but making it a brother and a sister is great.
Yeah.
Because they can do different things with it.
It adds a different dynamic.
Yeah, totally. Because I did think he was gonna when he's burying her. I thought he was gonna behead her. When
That's
she's
what I
talking to
thought,
him,
too.
he's like, "Shut up."
Yep.
And it would have been great if they did do it that way, but the way they did it is fine too. But you kind of feel like with that dynamic going on, you really don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay. Yeah. No.
You go ahead.
No, I mean, final word. They kind of struck that perfect balance between paying homage to the original and, in the spirit of the previous Evil Dead sequels, remakes, whatever, giving it its own spin to stand on its own. So I mean,
and the little things they throw in are very subtle. It's not like over the top. The guy's playing with cards. You know, there's a card scene in the original.
Oh, okay.
Where they're like reading cards. They're like reading other people's minds.
And the necklace that he gives her, I think, is kind of the same for the first movie. And even when he picks it up off of the ground, the chain has fallen in the same pattern that it did in the original movie. All kinds of great little nods.
Good replay value.
But I really like that this movie wasn't afraid to kind of be its own thing. You know, they redesigned the Necronomicon. They didn't have characters levitating in this. It really...
Well, they did, actually.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Characters were levitating in this movie?
I thought so.
This new one?
Well, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember.
But like
there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. But this movie wasn't afraid to be its own thing. So by all means, you know, probably our most enthusiastic recommendation since we've been doing this show, go see the new Evil Dead. And you don't have to have seen the original, but I think you'll want to see the original and Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, and you totally should kind of adjust your expectations because, like Jordan said, they all kind of stand on their own. But
what's your favorite one?
Oh, boy, it's tough. I part of me wants to say Evil Dead.
Excluding the new one.
Part of me wants to say the new one. Of the original trilogy, I think I like Evil Dead 2. Army of Darkness is really funny. It's really over the top. It's just the right amount of cheesy. Bruce Campbell is amazing in it. An Oscar-worthy performance, honestly. I think it's just horrific in Army of Darkness. But ultimately, I like Evil Dead as a cabin in the woods, demon possession story. And I think the introduction of the overt humor in Evil Dead 2 kind of raises it to another level that the original didn't quite hit. So to me, Evil Dead 2 is kind of like the quintessential film in this franchise. I think it would be a great film to check out for people having seen this new one and just kind of wondering about some of the earlier films. I think Evil Dead 2 is an excellent choice. Kind of just a perfected version of what Raimi and those guys did in the original Evil Dead. But they're all good. They're all worth seeing.
It's a great series.
Yep. So as long as Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, Robert Tapper are involved to some extent, I'm happy to see this franchise keep going because unlike a lot of horror franchises and remakes, this one clearly has a lot of life left into it, and the newest entry is absolutely fantastic.
I mean, what's great, I always thought, I had like a question that I would always ask people who know a lot about films. I would say, like, name a film series where the third one is the best one. And almost no one could do it.
Yeah. No, like Alien, Spider-Man,
Godfather 3, like no one.
Star Wars.
Yeah, it's like, it's always, like, typically it's first one's really good, so they want to make another one. Second one's like goes another direction. Spider-Man 2, Dark Knight. It's not even limited to superheroes. Godfather 2, stuff like that. They go in a whole nother direction because they have a new budget. They have not always a new director, like usually not, but sometimes they just do whatever they want. Third one, they just kind of rest on their laurels and
they're tired.
They're tired and they use whatever. The only one I could ever think of was Lord of the Rings, the third Lord of the Rings movie. I thought the third one was better than all the other ones. But then if you look at these Evil Dead movies, since they all stand on their own, it's almost not even a series.
Yeah, you really can't compare Army of Darkness.
Because now I would almost say like Army of Darkness is like the best third one.
Yeah, but it's just kind of on its own.
It's on its own. Yeah, it's a third movie technically.
Yep. So would you, this will be our final question, we're going to wrap this up, but would you prefer...
This is like James Lipton.
This is going to go on and on.
What's my favorite curse word?
You know, if Evil Dead kept their runtime to 90 minutes, we should be able to keep this podcast under the hour mark. But What direction would you like to see them go in the inevitable sequel? Because I'm hoping this does gangbusters at the box office.
All I'm going to say is I want to see them remake Army of Darkness, and they can do whatever.
They can do whatever they want. Go straight Army of Darkness.
You can make a ridiculous comedy. You can make it a horrifying. Like, just use that idea and go with it.
Right on. So. Well, on that note, I think whatever they do for the sequel of Evil Dead, Jordan and I will be there to watch it, and hopefully we'll still be doing a podcast about it when they get the sequel in theaters in a couple of years. So, so Evil Dead. Just watch everything Evil Dead. Go see the new movie. Go see the new movie again, and then rent the original films. It's just a great franchise, and we had a great time watching it.
And you didn't call it Walking Dead even once.
No, I've been accidentally calling it Walking Dead all week, and I got through a whole episode. So thank you, Jordan, for acknowledging that. I'm very proud of myself.
I'm very proud of being able to call it out, even though you didn't even do it.
There you go. Now he's got to get a dig in me at the end.
Right on.
All right. So thanks for watching, and enjoy watching Evil Dead this weekend, because that's definitely what you should be doing. We'll be back soon. See you guys later. Bye.